We start off the show by talking about, and I know you've been doing this for a long time as well, writing about politics and observing them, and I imagine you've seen dozens of debates and the aftermath. I don't think there has been a more both organic and quicker, decisive narrative spin coming out of a debate than this one. And one that impacts more than the debate itself.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I can think of the only thing that seems similar to me in terms of sort of like the sense of catastrophe that emerged out of it was Obama's first debate against Romney back in 2012. I distinctly remember the kind of the rending of garments after that debate. But there were no calls for Obama to leave the race. This is the key thing, that his performance against Romney was widely considered to be terrible, but there was no like fundamental sense that maybe Obama wasn't prepared to actually run for re-election. It was more fear over weakness that seemed to be present in the campaign. Yeah. Here, obviously, Biden, there's this ambiance, right, of uncertainty about Biden's ability to campaign and stand toe-to-toe with Trump. And then we have this terrible debate performance in which it's not just that he stumbles over his words, which would be one thing. Like if he sounded clear and confident but stumbled a bit, don't think people would be so freaked out. If he were quieter and a little raspier but did not stumble over his words, then I think that would be one thing. But the combination of the raspiness and his stumbling, his occasional incoherence, it reinforced everyone's fears about Biden. So you're right. There's been this, not only was the debate performance terrible, but there's been this, call for him to drop out from Democratic electeds, certainly from liberal pundits of various stripes. And that is unusual. That's very unusual. That's new.
It is, and I think like your points about narrative and ambience are the key here, because to the extent that there was like a narrative about Obama with that first debate with Romney, it was he's too overconfident. Like, we had gone through 2010, where he said, I got this. And then the Democrats got slaughtered. And there was this notion of like, he's not taking this seriously enough.
Right.
And that was the existing narrative, but it just wasn't as omnipresent as the narrative of, is Biden old enough? And so this is like one of those worst things where the debate loss played right into the narrative. And let's play a clip. I mean, the other thing that was so frustrating is that like Trump lied. His performance was, even for like, what you'd expect from Trump, not particularly good, but there were so many layups that Biden missed in this situation that this is like, here, play this is the question about abortion.
Yes. This should have been something that he easily was able to respond to here. This is the issue for the Democrats that, I said this earlier, besides democracy being on the ballot is so important, right? And selling the urgency of that, I think, is undercut by Biden. Do we have this, Bradley? Yeah, I think it's undercut by Biden's performance, because it's like, how can it be so urgent if this is the guy that you're fielding? And then abortion is the other big issue, and he just flubbed this response here.
It's a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that She was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
I mean, he sort of started out okay, like he was, if I read the first couple of sentences, I was like, okay, but then he just clearly got lost.
By an immigrant?
Yeah.
I mean,
he wasn't able to turn that into a cogent point. And I think as time went on in the debate, and it was what, 90 minutes, it was a very long 90 minutes.
Yeah.
As time went on, he got like a bit better, but just like wasn't able to do it. And
I mean, I hate to like have to play these clips on some level.
I mean, do you
because
really
it's like
have to?
everybody? But like, we got one more bad one, then we'll get to the one where you're talking about at the end, because maybe not everybody watched it. I mean, it's but like there is something uniquely problematic about the way that he answered that last question. Aside from it being a gimme, it was like. And clearly they over-prepared him with these sort of like small stories, but it also in that one, it felt like he got confused between narratives. Like, there's no politician in the world who's sitting there with an abortion, which is his big cudgel, and then pivots midway through it to bring up Donald Trump's talking point about immigrants murdering people. Like, it's just, that just doesn't, people don't do that. And here is another one where he had that sort of same, there's a similar dynamic.
I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. Now, what I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
So that was in the first 10 minutes, right? I mean, I think that's when Sam and I started to have this sinking feeling in our gut. That's really hard to watch, but how he ends, we beat Medicare? He also didn't respond when Trump claimed that Biden was trying to cut Social Security and Medicare, which is another thing that he needs to be emphasizing. It's how would you not say it's the Republicans that have been wanting to cut Social Security since its inception and Medicare since its inception? Go on the offense. How can you cede that point?
I think so. Sam, you brought up a point about preparation, and I think Biden's performance here is one part his age and one part his ability. I think it's one part also maybe how Democrats are just preparing for these debates. They're preparing for them as if they are debates. But I think the one thing that Trump understands intuitively is that they aren't. They're showcases for you to create images. And what you say is actually not that important. And the moderators don't care, right? Like the moderators aren't going to step in and say, well, you didn't answer my question, Mr. President. No, they're going to let you go at it.
They could have been written. The moderators could have been replaced with literally written questions because they didn't respond to what was happening in front of them at all.
Right. The one useful place where AI might have a place to play might have been like moderators for these debates. So
True. It'd be fascinating, actually.
So in this case, how Democratic debaters should be prepped is just to sort of like say your talking points. Right, like say this is the message of the Democratic Party. Here's what Republicans are doing. Here's what they will do, and here's why you should vote for me. And that guy, that guy's a chump. That guy's a loser. That guy's a liar. And just sort of say that regardless of what the question is. Do a perfunctory, yeah, I heard the question, and then go into your talking points, because there's nothing else is gonna. There's no penalty for it.
Right.
No,
So why not?
I couldn't agree more with that. And what struck me during the debate, I mean, let's assume, look, the problem is the moment where he got lost. Got completely lost. The problem was when he's talking about abortion and he sort of wanders into this immigrant murder, and you going to the funeral type of thing. That was the big problem. If those didn't exist, and he didn't, sort of like you say, like his voice wasn't raspy or whatever it was, then I my issue would be like, why do you keep like being defensive with Donald Trump? Like, why are you having to say, what do you say? Like, why are you even looking over at this guy? Like,
Right.
you should be
on the offense.
The best time he had on the debate is when he's laughing.
Right.
Yeah.
The first thing out of his mouth should be, "It's ridiculous that I'm on stage with this felon."
100%.
Yeah.
That's
100%. And that should have been the running theme throughout in his behavior, his demeanor, the way he answered every question. And so the prep was horrible. And I also say, and this is because I came from a background, whoever walked him through or walked through the set, which they definitely do, did not understand eye lines at all, because Donald Trump was always looking at the camera. And I suspect that's because of where he was positioned on the stage and where the camera was relative to the moderators. And Joe Biden, when he's answering a question, is looking over at the moderators and always is like angled from the camera, and it makes him look like he's out of it. It's a tiny thing, but this is like, we've known this is what it is for 60 years since Nixon, JFK.
Well, it's a tiny thing, but it's emblematic of this approach to like treating this like it's debate, treating it like the moderators matter. Like they don't. The moderators don't matter. The questions don't matter. Like none of it matters. All that matters is that you can present like a commanding image, and if you can do that, then frankly, people in the press will say you won, regardless of what you said. They'll say, "Oh yeah, he didn't answer the questions and he lied, but he was so commanding."
Yep.
And that's all you need. And I think it's really striking that Democratic Party debate prep, the White House, just like does not understand this and hasn't understood it. Right. This was Obama's problem in 2012. This was Hillary Clinton's problem in 2016. Like, this is a recurring problem. And I think it speaks to an actual sort of structural problem in the Democratic Party.
They must have thought, like, we're going to take this into a quiet, old style, like, Buckley firing line type of thing. And you're going to really be able to take them into the weedy part of the pool, and you're going to be able to drown them there. And which is even a candidate who could think on his feet and actually deliver this stuff would have been problematic with that. This is the best part of the debate. Let's play this clip. This is the part where this should have been basically what Joe Biden did throughout. He should have smiled and just go, treat
him like a joke, which is what he did in 2020 to great effect.
And waited to pour on.
Yep.
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to the Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll not forgive them for what they've done. they've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that but he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden.
Okay.
President Trump.
That was not the best example of that. The best example of that is number 7. Sorry, he took way too long to get there, and in that instance, do number 7.
When he
Pop up number 7.
Where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump.
I mean, just being able to sort of like drop insults on him, I think is indicative of where he was. I mean, there were other moments too, I think, where he said, you're a whiner, and he sort of laughed him off a little bit. But that should have been the tone from the. Go ahead.
The one time when he called him a felon, Trump got like very destabilized by it. I mean, it was striking. There hasn't been that much discussion of Trump's performance, but like from when I was watching it, I was sort of struck by how after about a half hour, Trump also lost whatever training he had, and was just sort of like kind of speaking in this like elliptical, tirades. But also he really got going in a way that did not make him look good when Biden was like, you're a felon, and began like, litigating the whole thing. And I think that's a soft spot. I mean, it sounds crazy to be like, oh, it's a soft spot that the former president's a felon, but like it's a
it's sort of a big deal
that you should go for. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
It also occurred quite late into the debate, which I do think, to your point, Jamel, shows a fundamental lack of understanding about this, because the moments that Biden did best were 50 minutes in, an hour and 10 minutes in, and the narrative was already set by that point. The die had been cast,
right.
And this was evident when the day after Trump was convicted of felonies, Biden held a press conference about what he said was an Israeli peace plan or ceasefire plan, and didn't address the elephant in the room, that his opponent had been convicted of 34 counts of felonies. And he did his viral moment where he got to do his dark Brandon thing and turned around and smiled at the camera because he thought that would be a way to look presidential instead of what you're saying. It's about the communication. This isn't about some game of looking more presidential or above things. Call him a convicted felon from the jump. Make that case from the beginning, because this is not the environment that they pretend that we live in anymore. I mean, we're not in 1972 or even 1992. It's about moments. It's about creating sound bites, and call him a felon off the jump, right off the rip. Right.
It's not even 2012, right? I mean, we are in a media environment where everything is basically decontextualized, and so the goal, if you're a campaign, should be to create moments that play the same regardless of context. And the White House just doesn't seem to understand that this is the game they're playing. This is the fight they're in. What's that line from The Wire when Marlo walks up?
I've said this about a dozen times over the past 2 weeks.
You want it to be one way, but it's the other way.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally brought that up. I think we even played it. Like
Sam really has said that a million times.
I mean, that's the way it's been the past couple of weeks.
The Wire is a great text about American politics. So
it's yes. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.